Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We are looking at the Nepali Diaspora Digest.
Oh, I'm excited. Me too.
This is a really interesting set of news stories that are curated from a variety of Nepali news sources.
Yeah, and we've got a whole mix this time.
Yeah, we've got politics and economics and social issues,
Um,
even a cool little geographical fact about one of the shortest rivers in the world.
yeah, that's a fun one.
I was really drawn to one story in particular, though, and it was about this Nepali worker in Malaysia
Yeah.
who lost his hand in a factory accident, and he managed to get lifelong disability benefits.
It's a fascinating story.
It is, and we are going to be looking into this and so much more today.
Definitely digging deep.
Yeah, not just like what happened, but why it matters to you.
Exactly.
So let's dive right into it.
Let's do it.
Nepal's been making some moves on the diplomatic front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're opening new consulate general offices in Dallas, San Francisco, and Dubai.
Wow.
And they're giving the existing ones in New York and Jeddah a much needed,
Yeah.
upgrade.
This is a really big deal
Yeah.
for the Nepali diaspora.
Yeah, especially when you think about things like renewing your passport or getting documents attested.
It's a hassle.
Yeah.
It is, and these new offices are going to hopefully
Make it a lot easier.
smoother for those Nepalis living in those regions.
There's even a story in the Kathmandu Post.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, about how Prime Minister Oli promised the Nepali community in California that they would get a consulate in San Francisco.
That's great.
It is.
Yeah.
And that came about after they told him how difficult it was to travel all the way to New York or Washington, D.C. just to get basic consular services.
Essential services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This move by Nepal really shows how countries are starting to recognize the importance of their diaspora communities.
It's about time.
Yeah, and providing these services. It's not just about convenience.
Right.
It's really about strengthening those ties
Yeah.
and making people feel
Connected to their homeland.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Definitely.
But as we'll see later in our deep dive, even with consular services, Nepali migrant workers can face
Significant challenges.
for sure. It really makes you think,
Yeah.
what more can be done to protect those individuals who are in such vulnerable situations?
Absolutely. And we will be digging into that later.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a little bit and look at Nepal's economic picture.
Okay.
The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is projecting that Nepal's economy will grow over 4%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And this is driven by post-flood reconstruction and public spending.
That sounds really promising, but didn't those floods in September 2024 cause like billions of rupees in damage?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were devastating. The floods had a huge impact, causing 46.68 billion rupees in damage, according to the reports we have.
Wow.
The IMF actually had to adjust their growth forecast because of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the report highlights that 83% of the damage was to physical infrastructure,
Wow.
including 41 damaged roads, which disrupted supply chains
yeah.
and impacted the overall economy.
That's a ripple effect.
Sure.
But here's something I thought was really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Nepal, they're known for their agriculture.
Right.
They actually saw their paddy imports from India
Really?
double.
Wow.
You'd think they would be self-sufficient, right?
Yeah, you would.
But the reason is that India relaxed its export duties.
Okay.
So while this might seem beneficial in the short term,
Yeah.
it raises questions about Nepal's long-term food security and reliance on imports.
Interesting. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, short-term gain for potential long-term vulnerability.
Exactly.
And speaking of challenges, there seem to be some concerns within Nepal's financial sector as well.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so the Nepal Rastra Bank, the NRB, which is their central bank,
Right.
they issued warnings to 3 commercial banks.
Wow.
Yeah, Himalayan Bank, Prabhu Bank, and NIC Asia Bank for violating regulations.
That's not good.
Not good at all. And to add to that, Bagmati Province declared 3 cooperatives as crisis-ridden.
Yikes. This definitely raises questions about stability and oversight
Yeah.
within Nepal's financial system.
For sure, it highlights the need for strong regulations and transparency.
Absolutely.
Now, let's shift our focus to a story that I think really struck a chord with me.
Okay.
It's about Antari Khatri, a Nepali migrant worker in Malaysia.
Yeah. I read about that too.
It's a really powerful example of resilience and the importance of having social safety nets.
It is, and it also brings up some systemic issues.
Yeah.
So Antari was working in a steel plant in Malaysia when a tragic accident happened
Yeah.
and he lost his hand.
It's just unimaginable.
The impact.
Yeah, both physically and
Oh,
emotionally.
it must have been devastating.
Yeah, he even said that he wished he had died rather than going home
Wow.
with a disability.
But instead of giving in to despair,
Yeah,
he fought for his rights.
he did.
With the help of friends and family in Malaysia, he was able to navigate the world of Social Security,
Yeah.
both in Malaysia and in Nepal.
And thankfully, that support system worked.
Yeah.
He received 800,000 rupees from Nepal's Foreign Employment Welfare Fund
Oh, wow.
and a monthly disability benefit of 824 ringgit.
That's about $185.
Yeah,
Wow.
from Malaysia's Social Security Organization, SOCSO.
Okay.
And this benefit is for life.
That's incredible.
It is, and his story is really a testament to his own determination.
Absolutely.
But it also really emphasizes how important it is to have these systems in place
Right.
to protect these vulnerable workers.
Yeah, but it does make you wonder what more can be done.
Yeah,
How can we prevent these accidents from happening in the first place?
those are big questions, and I think we need to dig
Deeper.
deeper. Yeah, now turning to the political landscape in Nepal,
Oh, boy.
things seem to be
Heating up.
heating up for
Yeah.
sure. There's definitely some tension.
Oh, there is.
The opposition leader, Pushpa Kamal Dahal, has been very openly criticizing Prime Minister Oli's government.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's calling it anti-democratic and illegally formed.
Wow.
Yeah, and he even predicted that it won't last much longer.
Ooh, fighting words.
And on top of that, there's an internal struggle within the ruling CPN-UML party.
Uh-oh.
So former Vice Chairman Bim Rawal was expelled.
Okay.
And in response to that, nearly 1,100 leaders and activists, mostly in Sudar Province, resigned.
Wow. An exodus.
It is. And it exposes some really deep divisions within the party
Yeah.
and dissent against the leadership.
This is definitely weakening the ruling coalition
Yeah.
and adding another layer of complexity to this political scene.
Like a political thriller.
I know.
And on top of all that,
What else?
we have school teachers who are getting ready to protest in Kathmandu
Oh, no. What's this about?
over the school education bill.
Okay.
So the main issue is about teacher management and rights.
Okay.
So local governments are looking for more control over the teachers, according to the Constitution. And the teachers are worried about potential political bias.
I see.
The education minister is urging them to just focus on classroom learning and improving the C graduation rate.
So that's the school education examination.
Yeah, but the teachers seem really determined to make their voices heard.
It sounds like a clash of perspectives.
Yeah, for sure.
Both sides are prioritizing different things
Yeah.
within the education system.
It is.
It'll be interesting to see how these protests
And then the political tensions.
affect the education system
Yeah.
and the government's stability in the long run.
For sure. Now let's move on to some pressing social issues that emerged from the Nepali Diaspora Digest.
Okay.
One statistic really shocked me.
Oh.
Almost 70% of medical doctors failed the Nepal Medical Council's licensing exam.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, it's a crazy number.
That is staggering. That raises serious concerns about the quality of medical education in Nepal.
Yeah, it's not just about passing a test. It's about the health and safety of the people that these doctors will be treating.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is, and this should be a wake-up call
Yeah.
to the medical institutions and policymakers in Nepal.
To reassess their standards.
For sure.
And make sure that qualified professionals are the only ones getting licenses.
Yeah, and if that wasn't enough, air pollution in Kathmandu
Still a problem.
continues to be a major concern.
It's not going away.
Reports show that 60% of vehicles tested failed emission standards.
Wow, that's a lot
It is, and this really highlights the
Yeah.
environmental challenges.
that the capital city is facing.
Yeah, so the Kathmandu Metropolitan City, they're urging vehicle owners to make repairs and upgrades.
Yeah.
But
More needs to be done
clearly more needs to be done to get to the root of the problem.
to address those root causes.
Yeah, and it makes you think about those long-term consequences for public health and the environment in general.
Absolutely.
Now, before we get too bogged down in the challenges,
Yeah.
let's celebrate a Nepali victory.
Always good news.
How about that cricket win?
Oh, yeah. Nepal beat Malaysia in the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup.
They did.
They bowled them out for a low score and then easily reached their target, winning by 7 wickets.
That's fantastic.
It is
It's a real testament to the talent and dedication.
with those young athletes.
For sure. And speaking of talent and dedication,
Okay.
we want to tell you about a fantastic resource
Oh, yeah.
for the Nepali community in the UK.
Okay.
It's called balaya.uk,
All right.
and it's a website for Nepali classifieds in the UK.
Okay.
So they've got Everything from jobs and housing to event listings. So
Wow.
if you're looking for a new opportunity or just want to connect with fellow Nepalese,
I know some people
yeah,
who would be interested in this.
yeah, be sure to check out balaya.uk.
Great resource.
It is,
Connecting the diaspora.
Yeah.
Fostering a sense of community.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And welcome back to our deep dive into recent news from Nepal and the Nepali diaspora.
You know, before we went to learn about balaya.uk, we were talking about Nepal's victory in the U19 Women's T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
And it's always so inspiring to see Nepali athletes doing so well on the international stage.
Absolutely.
What other stories did we find about Nepalese succeeding?
Well, there's this one that I think you'll enjoy.
Okay.
It's a story of success, but it also has a unique geographical element to it.
Oh, I love those.
So, have you ever heard of the Dungri River?
Not ringing a bell.
It's in Chitwan.
Okay, is it one of those big rivers that flow through the Himalayas?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
The Dungri River might actually be one of the shortest rivers in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it flows only about 1 kilometer before it merges with the Narayani River.
Wow, you could practically walk that whole length in just a few minutes.
You probably could.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it might not be as grand as some of Nepal's larger rivers, but it's got its own charm.
For sure.
And it plays a really important role in that local ecosystem. It supports agriculture and wildlife near Chitwan National Park.
Oh, cool.
And there have even been some community-led efforts to protect it from environmental threats.
It really shows you that even the smallest things can have a big impact.
Absolutely.
And it highlights how diverse Nepal's natural heritage really is.
It does.
It's interesting how this conversation started with cricket, and now we're talking about a tiny river.
I know, right?
It really speaks to just how wide-ranging the stories are that we're looking at today.
Absolutely. And speaking of wide-ranging,
Yeah,
we haven't really touched upon the Nepali diaspora yet.
that's right.
And we talked earlier about the expansion of consular services.
Right, which is good.
Yeah, which is a positive step for Nepalese living abroad.
Definitely. Those new offices are going to make life a lot easier for people.
They will, but it's important to remember the challenges that Nepali migrant workers often face.
Yeah, even with those services.
Even with those services in place, and Antari Khatri's story comes to mind,
Absolutely.
and how he had to fight for the support he deserved. Exactly.
It really underscores the need.
For more than just accessible services,
Yeah.
but for, robust systems.
Yeah, that actually protect the rights and well-being of Nepali workers abroad.
And his story isn't unique, unfortunately.
Not at all.
There are so many people facing similar struggles.
Exactly.
It's a really sobering thought, and it makes you wonder, what can we do to make sure these workers are safe?
Yeah.
They're treated with dignity,
Yeah.
especially since they contribute so much to Nepal's economy through their remittances.
Absolutely. And there are organizations and initiatives that are working towards that goal.
Right.
And we talked about the Foreign Employment Welfare Fund, which gave Ontario some financial assistance.
Right.
But we really need to do more,
Yeah.
both at the government level and also through community support.
It's a collective responsibility.
It is.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to touch on something we mentioned earlier,
Okay.
the Nepali Diaspora Digest.
Oh, yeah.
We've been exploring all these different news stories from it.
Right. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the newsletter as a whole.
I think the Nepali Diaspora Digest does a really great job curating such a diverse range of stories
They do?
that are relevant to both Nepal and the diaspora.
Yeah, it's a really valuable resource for anyone who wants to stay informed.
Definitely.
I agree. It's well organized. It's informative.
Yeah?
And they even throw in a little bit of humor,
Yeah,
which I always appreciate.
me too.
I really enjoy the Did You Know section.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, where they highlight those kind of unique and often overlooked aspects of Nepal.
Like the Tungar River.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we learned about it.
It was.
Those little details really make the newsletter more engaging.
Yeah.
And it kind of reflects a larger trend.
Okay.
People are looking for information that's not just factual,
Right.
but also relatable and memorable.
It's about making those connections.
Exactly.
And that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive.
That's right.
We take these complex news stories, we
Yeah.
break them down
Yeah.
and explore the human connections,
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, that make the information really resonate with people.
And in a world where we're just bombarded with information,
Yeah.
it's more important than ever to have sources that you can trust
Right.
that provide depth and clarity.
And hopefully a little bit of entertainment along the way.
Absolutely.
Now, for those of you listening who are in the UK and looking to connect with the Nepali community,
Yeah.
be sure to check out balaya.uk. Pellet.uk.
It's a great platform for finding Nepali classifieds.
Right?
So everything from jobs and housing to upcoming events.
Yep.
Belayat.uk.
A great way to stay connected.
So as we wrap up this segment of our deep dive into the Nepali Diaspora Digest,
Yeah.
we want you to just take a moment to reflect on the stories we've discussed.
Think about what resonated with you.
What resonated with you? What questions do you have?
Yeah. And we'll be back shortly to wrap things up with some key takeaways and final thoughts.
And welcome back to the deep dive.
It's great to be back.
We have covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Exploring stories from Nepal and its diaspora.
So much to talk about.
There is, from diplomatic developments and economic trends to inspiring individuals concerning social issues.
It's amazing how all these stories are interconnected.
It is.
Paint this complex picture of Nepal's present
and
its future.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the Nepali Diaspora Digest, what are some of the key takeaways our listeners should remember?
Well, I think the biggest one is the expansion of consular services. That's a huge victory for the Nepali diaspora.
For sure.
I mean, those new and upgraded offices are going to make a big difference.
Yes.
They're going to be able to get the support they need more easily.
Right. It's a sign that Nepal is really starting to recognize the importance of its diaspora and the valuable role they play.
Absolutely. And it's not just about government initiatives either.
Right.
Antare Khatri's story is a great reminder that individual resilience and strong support systems are so important.
They are, especially for those migrant workers who are facing all kinds of challenges.
Absolutely. His determination to get the compensation he deserved and navigate those complex social security systems.
That's inspiring.
It is.
It really highlights the need for accessible services and mechanisms to protect the rights of Nepali workers abroad.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we need to do more to make sure these workers are safe and protected.
We do. And on the economic front, it's kind of a mixed bag.
It is.
The IMF is projecting growth.
Yeah.
But you can still see the scars from those floods last year.
Those were devastating.
And there are some worries about financial vulnerabilities.
Right. So Nepal's got a lot to juggle right now.
Yeah.
Post-disaster recovery, economic growth,
Yep.
and then addressing these potential risks in the financial sector.
And, of course, we can't forget about the political landscape.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other story.
Which is
full of tension and uncertainty.
It is. We've got the opposition criticizing the government.
Right.
Internal struggles within the ruling party.
Yeah.
And all those protests.
Features, other groups.
It's complicated.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, and it's a really crucial time for Nepal.
It is.
The decisions that are made now are really going to shape the country's future.
They will.
We've covered a lot today.
We have.
And it's impossible to go into every single detail.
In one deep dive.
Right.
But hopefully this has given our listeners a better sense of what's going on in Nepal and the diaspora.
That's what we hope for.
If you want to stay up to date and explore some of these issues more deeply, we highly recommend checking out nepalidiaspora.net.
It's a great resource.
It is.
And as always, we love hearing from our listeners.
We do.
So let us know what you thought of this episode.
What stood out to you?
What resonated with you? What questions do you have?
And don't forget, the correct pronunciation is Nepalese.
Exactly, not Nepalese.
Every detail matters.
It does. And before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
Remember that really short river we talked about? The Dungar?
How can I forget?
It's a good reminder that even in the smallest
unexpected
corners of Nepal, you can find beauty and significance and a story waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely.
So keep exploring.
Stay curious.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Nepali Diaspora Digest.